Hello. Welcome to Fempreneur True Confessions Podcast.
Welcome, everyone. I am Laura, our ODAA, owner of ODA Virtual Assistant Agency, and I'm here to help small businesses with all of those back end tasks and all of those hats that you wear, and just kind of all of the business stuff that goes on behind the scenes. We are here to help with that. We're here to help you go on vacation this year. We're here to help you go spend some family time. And
Yes.
just know that you don't have to be present in your business. We're here to help out, make sure it runs, whether you are on vacation or you are there for the day. So if that is helpful to you, let us know. And that is who we are as ODAA. Just definitely here to help you.
Cool. And I'm Angelique Lovestrong with Lady Powerhouse Solutions. And Lady Powerhouse Solutions is a heart-centered approach to offering project and event management to women entrepreneurs who are on fire and lighten up the world with their passion and drive to achieve their missions in the most authentic way possible. And Laura and I do really similar things. We both have an agency. We don't do exactly the same type of work, but we do really similar work. And normally we would be seen as competitors. We would see each other as competitors, but because we both have an abundance mindset, we know that there's more than enough to go around. And what we end up doing is supporting each other, referring clients. And it's just been really, really great.
Yeah, I love it because we don't compete. It is definitely that, hey, every meeting I have is not the client. So there's times where you're even like, ooh, I'm not sure. So, hey, Angelique, is this something you may want? Like, we just always have been very open with each other and willing to just, hey, what do you need? Okay, great. Let me see if I know anyone that suits that model of what you're looking for. And, just being open to help each other out. And FYI, it helps you in your business too. So, you give, you give, you get, you give. So that works out.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's
Well,
kind
and
of how
together,
the podcast. Yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, you're good. I was saying, and together we are Fempreneur True Confessions
Yes.
podcast. So our mission is to empower women in business and in life to live authentically, as well as support each other instead of competing with each other.
Exactly.
So we are very serious about that. We like that authenticity. So to model this authenticity through our business and our personal relationships, this is to empower other women to do the same. Our business and
Right.
personal are all intermixed together. So it's, who are you? Who do you want to be? Who do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
No
When you
question,
grow
yeah,
up.
right.
But really, it's about normalizing and modeling the struggles, these challenges that we have as female entrepreneurs, and sharing those lessons because we don't. I know I keep going back every time I go through this little spiel. It reminds me of growing up, and your parents telling you, don't do that, because of this.
Mhm.
But yet we wanted to do it ourselves. It was like we just had to figure out our own ish, right? But we were children, but now we're adults. And I think that it's important that we do share lessons
Mhm.
that we've learned and that, like, so that we can help lift other women up. You don't have to keep learning that lesson yourself. You can learn that lesson by sharing your stories.
Mhm.
Um, and that's what we're trying to do with the podcast. Normalize what it looks like when women succeed at supporting each other, like Laura and I,
Mhm.
building up each other's confidence. When she's having a shit day, I'm having maybe a great day. Hopefully, she'll reach out and go, whatever. And, kind of hold each other up.
Mhm.
And, just kind of encourage each other in using our gifts and our passions, because what we're trying to do is just fulfill our life calling and figure out what that is. So the goal here with the podcast, again, build, maintain, and grow a sisterhood that believes in abundance mindset, that believes in sharing our challenges and the lessons learned and helping each other rise to our highest potential.
Absolutely. Wonderful. And with that, we are here with a very special guest. I'm going to introduce and we will bring her on stage. So,
You're so suspenseful. I love it.
no,
Like,
we have, no. Hi,
da, da, da,
Shelby,
da.
and welcome. So, we have Shelby here with us today, and she is a natural born entrepreneur. Shelby Fowler entered this world with an adventurous heart and an outlaw's energy. Love that. When she wasn't slinging lemonade at one of her early ventures, start them young, hashtag start them young, she was watching her badass parents manage their many small businesses. And eventually she was working right alongside them. It's that fiery entrepreneur spirit that brought her to where she is today. For the past 6 years, Shelby's been empowering women to soak up every last drop of financial freedom. Through her one of a kind ads academy, she teaches passionate women to become certified ads managers who radiate confidence. And she brings the and she's the perfect mentor for all things digital advertising and psych-based marketing. Because Shelby's own ad agency has managed over 2 million in ad spend in the last 2 years alone, and armed with her experience and relentless encouragement, Shelby's clients snatch back their precious time, run their biz on their terms, and make it girl income. And Shelby's the first to raise a glass to their success. She's known in the industry as everyone's fave hype girl, but like the woman she but like the women she serves, Shelby is more than an apologetic industry disruptor. She's a wife and a mother of 2 little girls. Welcome.
Welcome, Shelby.
Thank you for having me.
So the whole time she's doing the introduction, I'm grinning into here because we talked about this before. Shelby looks so much like my oldest daughter, and especially when you grin like just a little bit, it looks just like her little smile, which is kind of mischievous, and I like it.
Oh, too funny.
Yeah, and I had 2 daughters as well. So
Love it. Girl mom.
Yeah. How old are like not how far apart are they in age?
22 months. So just under 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine were 13 months apart.
Ooh, Irish
I'd
twins.
go places and yes, and that's exactly what people do. Are they twins? Because they did look so much alike when they were little. They look very different now, but
We get that a lot whenever we go anywhere with the girls. People come up to us and they're like, "Are they twins?" And we're like, "No." They have the same face, you know? So it's like they look like they could be maybe like fraternal twins because they're just like a slight height difference, but not much.
Wow.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, Shelby, thank you for being with us today. I know your time is valuable and you are like, you're a busy mom, you're a busy entrepreneur. I have worked with Shelby in conjunction with a client. And before the call, we were like trying to remember, how did we connect? And we can't remember exactly how, we just know that we did.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was when business feels hard. And I like the differentiation because these are your words, Shelby, when business feels hard. So it isn't necessarily that it is hard. It just feels like it maybe in that moment, in that season. And can you talk a little bit about when business felt hard for you and what you learned from that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we tend to think of success as this linear thing. And in fact, it is not, nor is life. Like there is good and bad in everything. And in order for you there to be courage, there has to be fear. In order for there to be like success, you have to fail. Like failure is a pivotal part of success. It's the key ingredient. And oftentimes I think we we think that if business isn't linear, it feels hard and it feels like we might be doing something wrong or we're not cut out for it. And I cannot tell you how many times I hear that from especially women, because I think men experience more rejection, in their, especially as, teenage boys and young men
Yeah.
than we do. And so it's almost like we haven't built that rejection muscle as much. And so it becomes almost personal. And
Yes.
so again, like it's a very common thing. But it also feels like you're alone in it,
Mhm.
So I've experienced this all the time. Like, I think business feels hard in different seasons. Like at least once a year, I think, gosh, should I like shut my business down? Should I go get a job? Should I burn everything to the ground? And that lasts
Yeah.
maybe like an hour. And then I go, ha, that's a dumb idea. Right. Like then I start to replay like, okay, well then I have to like work with people that I don't know. And I have no control over the people I work with in office politics, like all the things, right? Like
Yeah.
you have no control over your revenue or your income, sorry. So you are capped at what other people think you're worth instead of having control over that. A lot of things. So again, like probably at least once a year. But I will say that a pivotal part of this has been me learning that when I started my business, I had a lot of, I think, and for most of us, we start a business and we're so plugged into the vision of what our business can be and our why, because we're so close to that because we're just starting. And so we're like, that's what's driving us in the beginning. Once you've built more of an established business, you get further and further from that starting point. And I think you start to grow further and further apart from why you started the business in the first place and the vision. And so oftentimes when things start to feel hard, you forget those things. You forget like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this to have time freedom or flexibility for a lot of us or whatever it is, or financial freedom. And we also begin, as we become more established, we start to look in front of us and see who has gone before us and who has had success. And we become very destination focused and not journey focused. And that was a pivotal mistake I made. And I caught myself, and I still have to catch myself often.
Yeah.
Because you see somebody who maybe who's further along than you are and what they have and how
Oh, the comparison
yeah,
game.
exactly. And then you also, it's kind of becomes that like I have to keep up with that appearance, or that is the picture of what success is. So now I'm shooting for that instead of going back to your why and your vision and saying like, why did I start this business? Does my current business, like, does my current business model align with my vision and my why? And oftentimes it's not, because you have plugged into somebody else's vision along the way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like scope creep, right?
Totally.
You creep away from the original plan, the original navigation, like the map, you know. It reminds me of another guest we had, Allie Berthium, and she is a ghostwriter and a book coach. She helps people write their books as well as ghostwrites for them. And I'm in a master class with her in an ongoing subscription model. But so we meet several times. She has several opportunities a month to meet for an hour. She does a 15-minute lesson, 30-minute writing sprint, and then 15 minutes of like hot seat coaching for whoever's in attendance. It's called the Writing Bar. It's a phenomenal offer that she has. But one of the things she talks about is, because I hired her originally as a writing coach, and then life happened. My brother died, and it was completely just derailed. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to step back from this. So I've been trying to start writing this book. I finally started for a couple of years now, and what happens, and I've heard her say this over and over to different people, including myself, that imagine what it will feel like when you've written the book, it's written, it's done, it's published, and you're at a book signing, or you're at an event of some kind, and how that feels. And just, it helps you get rooted again.
Yeah.
Right, it helps you get grounded again. And we have to do the same thing with our business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we forget to revisit why. Like,
yeah,
where
why.
the joy part is in all of this, it becomes that frustration, and then that's all you seem to have of your business, forgetting where the joy in all of it was at one point when you were really bright-eyed about, I'm in business, it's gonna work and do that. So when you hit your lows, you're like, that's not what you're focused on in that moment, where just.
And that was something that one of our other guests had said too. She's like, before you rush on to the next thing, take a moment to celebrate what you've accomplished. Because as women, we don't do that. We're like, okay, that's done, moving on.
Yep.
And we're not taking credit for all the work we've done. What about all the shit that you have accomplished in your business?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about not only how to restructure and navigate difficult times as you grow your business, but how'd you figure this out? What was your epiphany or your aha moment?
Yeah. So as far as like how to kind of navigate the hard times.
Yeah, like how did you learn that lesson? I mean, because often don't we have to learn the lesson ourselves?
Yeah.
Sometimes several times before we can share it with anyone else
100%.
or teach someone else.
For me, I think it was, I am just as guilty as most people of you get into a habit of comparing yourself to other people all the time online, especially if you have an online business. I'm jealous of local-based businesses sometimes, because I'm like, sometimes you're just so busy in your local-based business, like doing the work, that you don't have time to be looking what everybody else is doing. So
yes,
but online, it's hard to get away from that. And so I think what happens is that I know this for me, but I know this from clients and such. You get online and you start to see what everybody else is doing. And again, I think it begins to like define how you see success. And that's what was happening for me, for sure. And I was also structuring my business model around what other people were doing, because that was the example that was set. And so if I want success at that level, then obviously I have to do it this way. And so as I start to build these things, I start to feel more and more resentful of my own business, because I'm like, this doesn't even feel like me anymore. And also I started my business for XYZ, and yet it's costing me those things to run the business. For instance, flexibility and time freedom. Like I'm working more than ever, or like I have no flexibility here, or whatever. Right. So for me, it kind of came in like a moment of, this doesn't feel good. And there was a point in time in 2021. Yeah, I think it was like spring of 2021. I had legitimately a breakdown where I was like, if I don't figure this out, I know that like my capacity is at its max level right now. And if I don't change something or figure out, like, I'm going to have to be committed. Like, I just knew that I'd never felt that way before. And so I started to like assess my business, and I was like, I literally hate what I do. I like hated the clients I worked with, most of them. I hated the way my business was set up. I hated the team that I had, right? I was like resentful of everything, and it had nothing to do with any of them, by the way. It had nothing to do with the clients. The clients are lovely. It had nothing to do with my team. They're lovely. It had everything to do with me. But I was like, I know that I'm feeling this resentment because it's a me problem. So it came back down to the fact that I built my business on somebody else's blueprint, and I wasn't being true to myself. And I think that there is a beauty to that when you're just beginning, right? When you're just starting out, someone giving you a blueprint to follow to get to like 6 figures or multiple 6 figures in business, lovely. Because like you're just starting out, you kind of need somebody to show you the ropes. But there comes a point when you are making good money and you're a more established business. If you're still doing it that way, it's going to cost you your why. I truly believe that. You have to get to a point when you start to do things your own way. And that's what it came down to. It was like, okay, I have built my business on a destination focus. And I love that you mentioned that a past guest said we don't take time to celebrate our wins, because that's what, when you're destination focused and not journey focused, or direction focused, you'll hit the finish line, whatever that goal is, and then you're gonna be like, okay, next goal, right? You never celebrate it because your whole focus is destination, right? And then once you hit it, it's gone. And that's like seconds. How many of us have accomplished something and we get to this pivotal moment when we're like, we've been working so hard for this, and we get to it, and then we're like kind of disappointed. It doesn't even feel that good anymore because we just are on to the next thing. It's such a fleeting moment. And instead you have to be, what I've learned is like to be focused on the journey and the direction and making the journey worth it, because the journey is where you're going to spend all of your time. Like you're only going to be at that destination for a second, You have to make the journey worth it. So it's reevaluating your business model, and is your business model in alignment with your why? It's pivoting if necessary, and many times it is. And also like understanding that, again, like you're gonna have hard days. I don't know who's telling people that business should feel easy all the time, because that's not realistic. That's not life.
No.
Like that's not life. So whoever is telling people that, I don't know what kind of crack they're smoking, but it must be the good stuff. And sell it on Amazon because we all want it. But it's not realistic. Like you're gonna have good days and bad days, but you have to lean into the process, and like also leaning into, like, for me, like that hard moment of crap, my business feels so hard. Instead of running away or avoiding, I was like, why is it feeling hard? Why? Like it's leaning into those moments, because those are our greatest teachers. Like those hard moments are actually the things that it's kind of like pulling the curtain off of the shit, right? We got to see what's there. And if you keep avoiding it and trekking along, like you're never going to fix anything.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So do you feel comfortable talking a little bit about, like as an example, how you yourself did that restructuring and pivoting?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, it was, I had an offer that I was selling for a year and a half at that point that I stopped selling. And it was like one of my main money makers. And it just didn't feel good anymore. And it also was requiring a lot of time from me. And for the revenue it was bringing in, I was like, it could be restructured a different way. I gave myself permission to like stop. And the other thing was, and we've talked about this quite a bit, I very much was following this like big grow this essentially corporation, right? And so hire all the people, train all the people, and replace yourself in the business and just keep growing and growing and growing and growing until you have this like massive team. And so I was doing that at the time. I was over hiring, quite honestly. My payroll was astronomical. And that was adding to some of my also like
stress.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, payroll is more than what I'm making right now. And then you're like that pressure of like, I have to I have to generate this much revenue every month just to make sure everybody's taken care of. And that's not including what I really want to be making so that I can keep going and keep growing. But, you know, and I was following mentorship advice at the time that was very much about like, keep growing the business, keep hiring. People are the key to success. And I truly believe like strategically, yes. However, again, growing that because that was somebody else's vision, not mine. And so I had to get back to a more lean team. And that's really hard to do when you love the people.
Yeah.
But you know that like my family, my mental health, and my happiness is on the line. Like I need to really lean this team out and be really strategic. For me, it was realizing like I love having a small, lean team, but I have zero desire to grow this massive corporation. Like it's not what I want. And I believe, and I've seen it and I've helped people do it, you can grow a multi-million-dollar business with a small team. You don't have to have 50 people, 300 people, 5,000 people working underneath you. Like you just don't. So those were like the big ones. And I think the second one that I mentioned, the people, like that's the hardest one when you have a big heart, because that's the one that cost me many tears and many, you know, times where I was like, but what if I could just like get a job and like help these people? Because I just felt so responsible for paying their bills, you know, because I cared about them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I totally get that. I mean, because I've been through a very similar situation. Like, and I'll be honest, right now my business is in transition because I had a life-changing event a year ago, and I don't know about you, but I've been feeling for the past year, people are entrepreneurs are backing. They're doing what you're doing. They're backing off on all this spending where they don't need to, or where they don't want to. It's not bringing them joy. It's not creating revenue in their business. It's not creating growth for them. And so I think that COVID kind of was this growth spurt, you know, of people entering the entrepreneurial space, which then, you know, there's always this, you know, this waterfall, this domino effect, right? And now people are starting to be like, okay, wait a minute. I want to shift my budget spending from this to this, which means you're going to maybe let a team member go, or maybe cut back on their hours, what have you. And I'm at a point right now in my business as well where I was like, just last week, I was like, maybe I should just get a job again. And I'm like, no, that's not what I want, you know? So let's look at what else we can do that's different, that will help create revenue or create less stress for me. I was working with a coach, and she said, you know, you're stressed out and you need to figure out a way to cause yourself less stress. And because I'm also dealing with a lot of health issues. And so part of it was back in March, I adjusted my work hours, and still 8 hours a day. And then I was struggling to work 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
So now I'm down to 6 hours a day. And honestly, there are some days I don't work 6 hours a day. I physically can't. So, you know, just being flexible and giving myself grace. That's been a huge deal because of this little story I had growing up about, you know, you can have anything you want as long as you're willing to work hard enough for it.
Right.
We had the saying in our house was, if you want something bad enough, you'll find a way. If not, you'll find an excuse, which I still believe. But also the like, work hard. You have to work hard if you want something. Like that's just, and then if you want more money, you have to work hard. Like when money is tied to hard work, it'll really mess you up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
So when you, sorry, go ahead, Laura.
I said, and when you go to tie that together, you limit yourself again in those moments where not even knowingly, but you're like, this is enough, this is settled, or this is, this will work, or whatever. Like at least it's something, and I got some kind of reward out of it, and maybe not what you were hoping for, but you're willing to settle for what it is that whatever's being.
Progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite. I don't know where I heard it. I heard it somewhere, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's because perfection is just a fallacy. It's a facade. It's not actually a thing. It's not achievable.
And I also think many of us have like the invisible timeline of when we think something needs to happen. And oftentimes when you look at it, like I had a moment recently where I was doing much like you, I started to adjust my work hours because I was like, okay. And I do this probably like at least twice a year where I start to go like, okay, business is feeling a little hard. Let's like take a look at where I might be slipping into past patterns, what needs to change, what needs to adjust, what needs to pivot. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, here's what I want to accomplish. And then I realized for myself that I had this invisible timeline that I had to do everything by like this, by the time I turned this age. And for me, I was looking at it and I had mapped out like things I want to accomplish in my 30s, in my 40s, in my 50s, in my 60s. I had put everything in my 30s. Yeah. And then I was like, what the heck am I going to do in my 40s and 50s and 60s? Like if I do everything. Like, well, and then also like that's stealing time away from my children that like I can spread this out. Nobody knows. Like I am in this for longevity, not for overnight success. Like this is outlandish. But then I started to make my hours and I was like, if I want to work for me, like my goal or dreams I'm always shooting for like 20-hour work weeks. And so, which is crazy to some, but but anyone can do anything. You just have to figure out the structure you need for it, the business model you need for it. So as I'm doing that, I'm like, what am I going to do with all this free time? And it started to freak me out because I was like, I only work 20 hours a day and my kids are at school. Like, what am I going to do? Like sit around and watch TV? Like, I don't want to do that. And then I was like, oh, that's my problem. I'm even like, as much as I say I want this, there's resistance around it because I'm not really sure what to even, like that much free time scares me.
Yeah.
And I had to make a plan for myself on like what I would do with all that extra time on my hands.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And there's this, I'm not sure where it came from, to be honest, but this concept, this idea that we have to be doing something all of the time. And instead of like just doing nothing, just being, relaxing, enjoying being. Exactly. I love it. This is all yummy. Okay, so you talk about pivoting shamelessly in business. What does that mean for you?
Yeah. I'll give you an example of the program I was just talking about, how at some point I decided like the program that I had been running, I needed to shut it down because it was no longer serving me and it wasn't making me happy and it was requiring too much time and energy. And so towards the end of that year, I was like, okay, I'm revisiting it a little bit, but I need to restructure it. I need to pivot because the way it was set up no longer served me. And so I made it a certification program and I put a timeline on it and I targeted an entirely new audience. And then it took off. And it felt so good, so much better. But I had to make the adjustment. Like I had to make that pivot And for some, it may have not made sense, but I oftentimes think that we don't pivot when we need to because we think that other people are going to care. And like, they don't.
They don't.
they're in their own.
They're in their own world.
Yeah. So we oftentimes are like, I think I hear this a lot, and I have surely felt this before. I was like, I'm going to confuse my audience. Like I felt that like, oh my gosh, if I offer, you know, for me, I own an advertising agency and have for many years. And then I also certify ads managers now, but I also do business strategy because I've helped countless businesses grow and scale past 7 figures, 8 figures. And so I really love helping business owners like create that a little bit more of that, like that business strategy required to scale and the marketing strategy. And so I could say like, wow, those are like 3 different things and I'm going to confuse my audience. But I actually had to realize like that was my superpower, is because I actually am in it. I'm not somebody who just like took a course and then decided that's what I wanted to do. Like I've been in it. Like I've gotten my hands dirty, my face dirty, my knees dirty. I have been in the ish for a while. Like I know this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes me really qualified for this, right? But again, it took a while to get there because I oftentimes think what we do is we go, I want to offer these certain things, or I want to change my business model up because it's no longer serving me. But if I change it, then I have to do you think like you're going to start confusing people. And so I also think that like we all are attuned to our own normal. And sometimes our normal is awful and unhealthy and overworking and doing the wrong thing all the time and not getting anywhere, not getting any results. I see this all the time because if you're doing the same thing over and over and over, you're doing the same marketing strategy, you are sharing the same things on social media, you're selling the same way and it's still not working, you're offering the same thing and it's so hard to sell all the time. But you're doing it that way because it's comfortable to you. That's your normal. And you have to understand that like pivoting is not comfortable. It's not going to be comfortable. Growth isn't comfortable. That's why they call it growing pains. So you have to be willing to be uncomfortable, and it's also kind of feels like you're jumping off the side of the cliff and like hoping that there's a net at the bottom. And you're like, hey, let's see. Like you have to be willing to do that and know that you're safe in your business. As long as you show up and you do the work and you're committed, even when it's hard or when it feels hard
or uncomfortable.
Yeah, you have to be willing to jump off the cliff because you signed up for entrepreneurship. And that's what this is. It is it is falling, it is flying off the cliff and being like, I'm gonna land, someone's gonna catch me. I don't know, but we're gonna figure it out. And if I don't see a net, the closer I get to the bottom, I'm gonna start building one really quick. Like that's entrepreneurship.
I love that. That's entrepreneurship. Jumping off without a net and building the net on the way down. Oh God, I don't see a net down there. Hey,
exactly. What do I have in this backpack? As you're free falling.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So before we run out of time, I want to talk about showing up authentically online, specifically online. Now, what's online mean to you? Let's kind of define what that is.
Yeah, I think that's like anywhere that's in the online social space that you are promoting your business. And that could be Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, email, like where your social presence online.
And that can be scary because, and that's one of the things that, that I really try to keep in the forefront. That's why we don't have a pre-recorded intro, because I want you, Laura and I, as co-owners, co-founders of this podcast, to remember why we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And that is because we were looking for authentic models for what we were wanting to do in our business. And we hear other women looking for the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And 80% of the female entrepreneurs out there weren't finding it, according to research that we were able to find.
Right.
So that's been one of the main vision missions is of this podcast is, be real. Don't fake it till you make it.
Right.
And I think more and more people are getting it. They're getting it.
Right.
And finding that being authentic, being real, is more attractive, that it's more relatable than this Instagram, perfection that so often is being portrayed in social media, especially social media, but also, like you said, email, website, all of the places that we can be in the ether, and just showing up and being real. And I think, what is your experience when you do that, even when it's scary?
So I have a couple of core beliefs here. I think number one, it's hard to show up when you have a fear of being liked or not liked. And so I think that oftentimes is the core problem. It's this you feel like you always kind of maybe overcompensate. You want to be liked. You don't want to be disagreeable. And I have certainly struggled with this in the past. In fact, we had a coaching call a week ago. We were having this conversation about how oftentimes, you're afraid to say the thing that you really want to say and to be true because you don't want someone to disagree with you or fight with you. You don't want to cause a problem. And I think that there's a way to have, I think we also have become so scared of having civil discourse about things. And I'm not even talking about because I certainly tell my clients, don't share politics stuff. Don't do all that. You have to think of your social presence, your social blueprint is it's business. It becomes your business accounts once you start a business. So I don't need to know your political, but if that's part of your brand, screw it, do it. I don't care. But I personally don't share that kind of stuff, right? I don't share a lot about my family or personal details about my kids. That's not my brand. Although I am a mother, I'm not a mompreneur. I'm not a mommy blogger. I'm not a boss mom. I don't see myself. I'm just a boss. So I think you have to get over the fear of being liked. And so you have to do your own work on that. And it's going to be deep work, unfortunately. It's not, it's the shadow work. It's the stuff that's not fun to explore. It's asking yourself, journaling it out, right? Who did I have to get to like me growing up? Why do I have this desire? And exploring that. And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? If I say that if you're growing your business past 7 figures and you're only doing organic marketing, that's dumb. I should be able to say that. But I used to be afraid to say stuff like that because I didn't want to upset somebody.
Right.
And sometimes those were my friends in business who I respected and loved. And I knew that they maybe disagreed with me, but I also knew I was right. So, you have to be willing to say it, and then you can have civil discourse in the comments. It doesn't mean you have to we can't avoid conflict all times, because when you avoid conflict, you become such a watered down version of yourself online. And it's hard to relate to somebody who just is so agreeable, right? When you think about when you go to a party and you walk in like immediately you're going to be attracted to the girl or the woman that is like, oh my gosh, like, do my armpits smell? Can you smell? Like, you're gonna be like, we're friends. Like, or if she's like,
Right.
I was doing my makeup and my chin hair was coming out and like I was trying to pluck it, I couldn't get to it. You're gonna be like, we're best friends. Like, we're
Right.
best friends now. Because you are having the same struggles as me and you're being open about it, which makes me feel comfortable to be super open with you. Like, we're best friends. Or you're like, they're eating cheese and they're like, do I have cheese breath? And you're like, yeah. And you're like, oh my gosh, we need to go break into some bathrooms and find Listerine because this is awful. Like, this cheese is stanky, right? That creates a bond. We like, you need to have that. But when you're so agreeable all the time, like you're just the woman at the party that's smiling, hi, how are you? Like, no one's coming up to you, no one wants to talk to you. Like, you're boring, right?
Exactly.
And so you have to be willing to be disagreeable, weird, unliked. Like, you just have to get over that shit. There's no way around it.
You know, do you think that TikTok has helped that? Because I feel like there's some weird shit on TikTok, but these people aren't afraid. They're modeling this just be, you know, being you, being real.
Yes.
And I didn't discover TikTok until late 2021. But I tell you what, girl, once I did, I was like, I love this place.
Yes.
Because there were weird people on there like me.
Yeah.
That I could relate to.
And
or that were just like refreshing.
Mm-hmm. I think we're
because
all weird.
They were being yes.
We're all so weird.
If we're being real, we're all weird.
Yeah.
For sure.
On embracing that, you know, we've talked about this, Angelique, where teaching my 18-year-old, you better learn to laugh at yourself.
You have to.
And I laughed at my mother my whole life. And people are like, that is so cruel. And I'm like, you have to understand my mother, though. She was quick-witted. And if you set up the joke, she ran with it 99.999% of the time. Like, and it was immediate. And it was one of so she earned her laugh back, you know, when we were doing stuff. But he gets bent out of shape about some things sometimes. And I'd be like, you better learn to laugh at yourself. I'll tell you, I have never fallen where I was not busting out laughing every time or trip over something. And before anybody else, you know, I'd be like, oh, good God, you know, just because you got to laugh because hey,
if you're a klutz, embrace it. I did. I'm a klutz.
Oh my God.
And as an adult, I would be falling and tripping all the time. And even my high school BFF, she was like, you know, it's like you fall down, but you're a ball. You just bounce right back up and just keep on going, you know? And
it's with everything. So it's good to see people just be willing to be like, fine, whatever, use me to laugh at, you know, or whatever. And it's helpful because getting past that idea of people laughing at you or embarrassing the shit out of yourself in the middle of whoever's watching, like, whatever, that's a daily occurrence. I just embraced it. I love it. Smooch it, whatever. It's who you are. So yeah, I think it's definitely harder and definitely a really good lesson for the younger generation as well coming in that seem a little bit more uptight with that idea of, you know, Yeah.
I think the second piece of that too is like for a lot of online business owners, I think it's when you're told what to do all the time and you likely come from corporate America where you're being told what to do. Oftentimes it's hard to find your voice. And so you begin to look at other people's voices to find your own. And I want to caution people on that, like to keep it like maybe you follow like 2 or 3 people, but like give yourself permission to unfollow people that are clogging up the like creative wheel, right? That are like, it's too much input. You have to like let go of that. But I do think that you have to, the second piece is like exploring your authenticity and your authentic voice, because you have to explore and put stuff out there and see what feels good and give yourself permission. That is authentic. It's the permission to be imperfect. Like to post something that like you're like, I don't know, but I liked this, but I don't know if it's gonna land, just like, or how I'm saying it, or you have to give you have to explore, and you have to give yourself the grounds to do that.
Yeah.
I like that, giving yourself permission. And that's important. One of the things that I've noticed is that for myself, when I see someone else say something or post something on social media, especially, but even when like us just talking with other business owners, talking with other entrepreneurs, and sharing ideas, and there's power in that. Again, Allie posted something on social media earlier this week or last week, and she's like, she was talking about her schedule, I think, and I commented, I'm like, thank you for modeling this, because I think it's really important that women understand that we are allowed to not work 9 to 5. That if we want to work 10 to 4 instead, it's our fucking business, and we can do what we want. I mean, it was like you were saying earlier, part of the reason that we do, some of the time, the reasons are time freedom or flexibility, but then we don't allow ourselves, we don't give ourselves permission. And so, giving ourselves permission, but just taking control of our own schedules. But it was interesting that when she modeled it, I was like, oh my God, I can do that too. But it took her modeling it. And I mentioned it to her in a call. And she said, well, it's interesting you say that, because someone modeled it for me. And, I don't know why it is this way. And I don't know if it's for men as well, but for women, it's like, once someone else does it, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that too. A part of it is that, wanting to be like other people, but part of it is just knowing that someone else did it and it makes it okay.
Yeah, it's tough being the first, right?
Yeah. Well, this has been fantastic, and the time has just flown. So Shelby, I want to give you especially thank you for, again, your time. I know how valuable it is and how busy you are, because I have worked with you, lady. And so if you're interested in seeing what Shelby has going on, she's got quite a few things coming up. She's going to be announcing some wonderful things on Instagram. So be sure to go out and follow her there. We will drop the link in the show notes. And our only ask this week is make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter. We're sending out weekly sneak peeks. We're sending out monthly recaps now. And wherever you are listening or watching, please be sure to subscribe wherever that is. That really helps us a lot. So we will see you guys next week. Same bat channel, same bat time. Tuesdays, usually 3:30. We go live, and we'd love to see you hang out with us. Thanks for joining us today, Catherine, too.
Thank you,
we
Catherine.
appreciate you guys showing up. Bye, guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye.